Alright everyone, how are we getting on? It's Tuesday morning briefing, Celtic Way, Tony, Joe, etc, Hamish. I should probably drag that out a bit more, guys, because nothing's really going on, is it? Or is it, Tony?
Nothing continues to happen, is that what you're telling me? New day,
Really
new club.
Selling this stream.
New day, new club linked with Matt O'Reilly. That's what's going on. Adam Idah saga rumbles on today, whatever it is, yes. And speaking of that, on the website today, you might want to have a read at this. I'll put it up in the comments section. Myself and Ryan have gone head to head on Adam Idah and whether or not we think he will sign for Celtic. And I'm still of the opinion that he will sign, and I've ended it by saying, bookmark this, do what you like with it. Adam Idah will be a Celtic player by the end of August, so I've nailed that colour firmly to the mast. Ryan's not so sure. He's saying maybe we should move on and look at other targets, but hey, I've always been consistent with what I thought, that Adam Idah will sign for Celtic because the manager wants him. I'm still sticking to that. I've written it down in black and white, so hey, come the end of August, he better be in the building or somebody's going to look foolish. Probably me, not for the first time ever, I guess, guys.
I was going to say, Joe, they've clearly, they're butting heads on this issue, but we're missing something very obvious from each of you, and that is a forfeit if you don't get your way. Because that's the way these things go, isn't it? So it's always all. You remember Gary Lineker, if Leicester win the league, I'll sit and do match of the day in my pants. I'm not putting that as a suggestion. I just want to clarify. But come on, I think we need a wee forfeit.
We want people to subscribe, Hamish, not turn off. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah. But are you worried about nailing your colours to the mast just in case he doesn't sign, or are you that sure?
I'm pretty confident that he'll still sign. I just kind of go by what the manager's saying, and just I think the kind of narrative that he's a troublemaker and some kind of hellraiser, and he's doing all sorts, to get his way. I just don't subscribe to that theory and notion at all. So that's basically the gist of my side of the argument here. I'll let you speak, Joe. Good morning to you. How are you, sir?
I'm not bad, thank you. Thank you for having me in as always. I think I mostly agree with your point, Tony. It's this time of year, isn't it, where, if there's been little to talk about, all the other kind of smaller things really get magnified, and I think that Adam Idah's behaviour, if you want to call it that, or the way that he's conducting himself, it's been a series of things, isn't it? He missed a flight. He's still got his. I know you're speaking about this in the piece, Tony. He's still got his banner on Instagram as Celtic. He's quoting. He's replying to the club messages with emojis, we love heart eyes and things like that. The one thing, and we spoke about this off camera, Tony. The one thing which kind of caught my attention more than most was I didn't see it, but allegedly went straight up the tunnel after the pre-season game that Norwich played. And I understand the fans were booing him. I think that for his own sake, maybe just going through the motions, a wee clap, maybe a laugh or a smile, and he might not feel like it inside, but I think that they all add up a little bit, and it's kind of painting a picture that nobody really wants. I'm sure Adam Idah doesn't want it, and Norwich don't want it. Celtic probably don't want it, and it becomes a bit of a saga when it doesn't need to be. My worry, I suppose, is that it's not even for Celtic's sake. I think that if Adam Idah doesn't happen, Celtic will move for a different player. We need a striker because we only have Kyogo just now. I worry for the player personally. If he's not a Celtic player, then we perhaps don't have an attachment to him, but I would hate to see someone who showed so much promise next year end up in the bad books at Norwich and not at Celtic. That's a terrible situation for the player who gave us, whether or not he's a Celtic player next season, gave us so much towards last season, not least scoring that goal in the Scottish Cup final. So that would be the worst case scenario for him. I probably lean with you, Tony. I think he still will be a Celtic player once, assuming that they can make the negotiations, which we don't see from this side. Right, I've no idea what Norwich are looking for. I've no idea what Celtic have actually offered. It seems a bit of cloak and dagger stuff at the moment, but I hope it comes good. And there is still time. I'm a broken record in that regard. We've started the league well, but there is still 3.5 weeks. Getting tighter every time I get the words come out my mouth. But there is still a little bit of time at this point.
We'll be here in 3 weeks and a couple of days going, still get 2 days to get 8 signings over the line. They're just... I'm intrigued by comments like this from Stephen. I'm not singling Stephen out at all, because it's an opinion that a lot of people have, and it's a valid opinion. He ain't coming, and I'm just intrigued by why people think that. I guess because it's dragged on for so long, but I've not heard anything from anyone to suggest this isn't a deal that isn't going to happen before the transfer deadline. Maybe I'm just naive. I'm well aware that Celtic have lost out on many players from transfer sagas in the past. Stephen Fletcher is the kind of obvious one that's come to mind. John McGinn would be another one. I just feel quite confident with everything I hear about this deal. The fact that you see people down south, Norwich fans, journalists down there saying, look, it's the best kept or the worst kept secret. Idah's going to go to Celtic. He's going to leave Celtic. It's just a case of getting it done. I can't foresee a world this season where Adam Idah isn't playing for us. Maybe I'm, as I say, just daft, Tony. I get why people feel like that.
We'll make that a pair of dafties or a trio of dafties then, eh? Because we all feel the same way. So I think you are very much. I mean, I hate to say it, but you're either in Camp Tony or Camp Ryan this morning if you read both those pieces. So it's very much where you sit on that particular fence, So, but my thoughts about Brendan Rodgers isn't saying troublemakers or people that would cause disharmony or disruption in a dressing room, right? Adam Idah's been a consummate professional for every manager he's worked with. I get what you're saying, Joe, about going through the motions with a clap, but if people are booing you, I think you would find it hard to give them any kind of, so stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam Idah himself...
my point there is it's not, I mean, if it was me, I don't know how I would react in that situation. It's more just... it feels like there's a lot at stake for the player. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's easy. I sit here, with no emotional attachment apart from being a Celtic supporter who wants to see the player through the door. It's more just for his sake. Has he maybe played into people's hands? And I get it must be really difficult. It's not necessarily a criticism. It's more I wonder if he thinks that maybe I should have just went through the motions there, and it's not another story to add to what's a growing story. Do you know what I mean? It's maybe I'm being unfair.
But I also think as well, he's been professional. Granted, he missed the flight, right? I get that. But it was Norwich that chose to go public on that, their manager. They could have kept that in-house. I've heard people calling him belligerent. He's not made one public comment about the whole Celtic thing.
I think that stuff baffling, genuinely.
He's not made a public comment about it, He's not went on strike. He's not slapped in a transfer request to force it through. So where's this belligerent troublemaker, mischief maker? He's still really friendly with the Celtic guys, and he's still got his Celtic top on his Instagram because it's the most successful part of his career so far. So why wouldn't you want to showcase that? I find a lot of this really... I'm like you, Hamish, I'm really baffled by all of this. And you ask any manager who's played under or any of his teammates that he's played with, they'll all tell you the same thing. He's a cracking influence in the dressing room, and he's a solid big guy, and he's a consummate professional. So Brendan values the people that he signs, doesn't he? The players as persons. I just don't think for a minute that he would bring in somebody that would cause disruption, disharmony, as I said. So I kind of get this belligerent thing about Adam Idah. All of a sudden he's metamorphosed into this kind of bad apple. Well, I know I've got 4 eyes, but I must be completely and utterly blind because I can't see that at this moment in time. All I see is a manager that really wants him, has publicly declared his interest in him, and the optics on it. I think it's a personal battle that Brendan Rodgers is going to win here as well. I think Norwich are playing hardball. 3 million players suddenly become double that and then some. I get that they want to turn around and say, look, we tried everything to keep him. This guy's heart lies in Glasgow. He wants to play for Glasgow. He's desperate to play for his boyhood heroes, but he's not made any kind of utterance publicly or otherwise. But I think most people, I think Tom English was on the BBC last night claiming that he knows for a fact that Adam Idah has told people close to him that he wants to play for Celtic.
Yeah.
So we are now at the stage where do we move on or do Celtic get a move on? And I think it's the latter.
should have been done by now. I mean,
Correct.
Brendan Rodgers, May the 25th, made those comments saying the board know how I feel. May the 25th,
Yeah.
we're 2.5 months down the line and he's still not been signed. And it was a comment in there, about Idah, he's not that good, so let's move on. Again, I just struggle with that. You look at the impact he had at the end of last season. This is a really good player. And it's the same people who look at like Bojan Miovski and to a lesser extent Lauren Shankland. And I like Miovski. I like him. For me, Idah's my number one out of the three of them for a simple fact. We know that Adam Idah can handle Celtic. We don't know that Bojan Miovski or Lauren Shankland can handle the pressure of Celtic. We have 6 months of evidence of Adam Idah being a great player for Celtic, and I hope we get more, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's taking the words out of my mouth in terms of Adam Idah. Bojan Miovski had a fantastic season last year, didn't he? Especially in that first half. And then from January onwards, if you look at the numbers, Adam Idah's were really good. They were better than Bojan Miovski's. There's every chance that a Miovski could come to Celtic and be brilliant. Score, a brace every single game, whatever, but we don't know. We don't know, and Adam Idah has proven in those, we've said it so many times, in those high pressure moments, those late last minute goals that got us through some of the games where we weren't playing brilliant football, that goal in the cup final, just having that presence, giving you that totally different kind of profile of striker when maybe Kyogo started coming on and unsettling tired defences. He's proven that he can do it. One thing I wanted to throw back to you guys was, what do you think the reaction is, given there appears to be this more prominent kind of message from Celtic fans, like we said in the comments, he's not good enough, we should move on. What do you think the reaction is if for whatever reason this doesn't happen, apart from you looking ridiculous, Tony? Well, how do you think fans will take it?
Tony and his scants. That's happening.
Well, my nickname when I was a kid was Ants, as in a shortened version of Anthony. So that would be Ants and his scants then, wouldn't it, Amy? You know what I mean? So I don't think people want to see that at all. As I said, I touched on it there. I think the optics in this are really, really important to the manager. I think this is, as Hamish said, on the 25th of May, the manager said, all but said, let's get this guy signed. We are now, the 6th of August? And I think this is a real personal battle for the manager and in that hierarchy at the Celtic. And if he doesn't get signed, I would fear for the manager then. I would fear for what he's thinking, because he signposted it all along, and then he's been a bit terse when he's been asked about it recently. But that doesn't indicate to me that it's not going to happen. I just think he's kind of like, right, I've said my piece on this. The guy plays for Norwich. Over to them, back over the net to those upstairs. And I don't know if you saw, there was somebody tweeted out that they get a autograph Peter Lawwell the other day, and they put it out, and Peter Lawwell was standing beside them, and they put it out that they actually chinned him about signings, and for whatever reason they happened to say, he did tell us that Adam Idah is on the radar, or is fixed into their thinking. So whether you believe these things or not, that's fair enough, but it was like footage of Peter Lawwell standing chatting away, and they were giving it a bit of that finger wagging. So whether he said it just to appease the person that was there, I'm not so sure, but you never know. But I think, as I said, the optics in this are too important for the manager, because from the cup final day onwards, fine well his public stance, and he will probably have said to Adam Idah, look, we want you. Just a question of going back to your club. You're contracted there for 4 years. Jump through their hoops, for want of a better expression. But trust me, you'll be back here at some point next season. So I place a lot of faith and a lot of stock in that. Again, Hamish, I might be naive and I might be stupid, but that's what I'm going on at this minute in time.
The last point I would make on Idah, and I think we will sign him. I want us to sign him. If there is an issue there, and there clearly is an issue right now, if that issue persists and it isn't going to be fixed this summer, we do need to move on to another player. If it's not going to happen, you can't wait and wait. You need to move on to another target. For whatever reason, I think Celtic feel that a deal is still doable.
Because neither Norwich or Celtic have put the tin lid on it, have they? Norwich haven't said it's not going to happen, and neither have Celtic. So that gives me hope that it will happen. That it's just a case of the two of them butting heads and just seeing a bit of common sense and coming to that financial agreement. Could be wrong in that, Joe, but I don't know what your thoughts are yourself on that.
Yeah, I think I'm like the manager. I've got nothing to add. That was it's just frustrating. I think as supporters, isn't it? You know, you see this guy that you like as a player, like what he offers, like the potential of this player as well. I mean, we've absolutely not seen the best of Adam Idah as well in terms of pushing him in Europe. You know, I'm not saying that he's Champions League quality yet. I'm not sure. You know, he still needs to prove himself on that ground, but he's got every chance of having a good tournament there if we can get him into those bigger games. It's a shame that the business wasn't conducted, that we didn't have him through the door quicker, because I'd love to have seen him in pre-season against, you know, Man City and Chelsea and these kind of bigger challenges. But yeah, you just hope that the business is done. We wanted it soon. We wanted it before now, for sure, and that it can be done at some point.
Matt O'Reilly, what's the latest chat there? Brighton are in for him. I think we were commenting earlier, just mentioning, I think it was Hazel saying, would he really go to Brighton without Champions League football? Brighton, for me, in a weird way, when I heard Brighton were in, I kind of went, oh no, because I feel like that's the kind of club he might actually go to. I know they've not got any European football, I guess, but they just strike me as that kind of progressive club. I mean, there's no doubt we're a far bigger club than Brighton, but I think for most footballers, given the league they play in and the reputation they've got for selling players on, Brighton are quite an attractive proposition. So I could kind of see O'Reilly there in a weird way. Again, it's going to come down to if they want to pay the 25 million plus that Celtic want. I'm kind of relatively relaxed about the O'Reilly part of it, because it's out of our control. We can't control it. It's up to another club paying that amount. The bit that I'm stressing about is the replacement if he does move on, and worrying that it comes too late in the day for us to sign an adequate replacement, because O'Reilly's going to take a hell of a lot of replacing, Tony.
He's irreplaceable, let's be honest. He really is. I mean, you can't say anything other than that. I think you can throw West Ham into that. I think they've recently joined on. So most of London's chasing them. Chelsea, West Ham, and Brighton.
West Ham,
Brighton definitely want them.
Atalanta, Atletico Madrid, Inter
Spurs,
Milan,
the Spurs fans want them, but
Arsenal.
they've not. Spurs and Arsenal have yet to declare. You know, so you've got Atalanta as well. Oh, there you go. There's my dogs going mental. The thought of Matt O'Reilly leaving Celtic. Honest to God, you couldn't make it up, could you? But I'll switch this off just now. Joe, you take the reins.
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you, Hamish. Like we can speculate about what Matt O'Reilly wants. One thing that seems, I don't know, he seems to have made shrewd decisions throughout his career, doesn't he? You know, like to go to MK Dons to ensure that he gets football. When he came through the door at Celtic, he you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he said things like, "This is where I need to be in my career." We've spoken at length about, you know, his first season, his second season, then of course last season he was just phenomenal. I was watching him. I was at the game on Sunday just with my dad as a fan, and you know, it was a great game, great football, fluid all over the pitch, and just watching O'Reilly off the ball, the amount of times that he's pulling players out to allow Hatate the space. It's nothing. I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but it's just a joy to watch. Do you know, like whether he's on the ball, he's off it, and what he's contributing. I've kind of noticed a lot of people saying, and I wonder if this is a pride thing among Celtic fans, like even with the Brighton move, like, oh no, we want to see him go to a big club. He doesn't need to have that stepping stone. Now, whether or not how Celtic use the money is a different conversation altogether, but I've got no issue, like I don't have any issue with where he goes. If he's happy and he wants to leave Celtic at this point in his career, that's up to him. Of course, if he goes to someone like Brighton and then, you know, has a fantastic season down there, there's every chance that one of the top 4, the top 6 come in, and there's a sell-on clause in place as well. Where he goes after Celtic bothers me less. I think that he's earned the right for us to, or earned the faith among us Celtic fans to, we don't want to see him go. I'd love to see him stay for another season. He's a mature 23-year-old. He might look at the Champions League new format and think, here's the place where I want to do it. You can rest assured Brendan Rodgers has had those conversations with him. But yeah, Brighton feels like a club that, as you say, it could be one of those ones that's enticing enough, and he seems to have chosen every club so far with that kind of meticulous eye, and Brighton kind of fits that profile, I think, like you said. So
Brighton and Atalanta are the ones for me that, progressive clubs, and I don't know if he maybe thinks that Atalanta have had their moment in the sun by winning the Europa League last season, but you're talking about lifestyle as well, that kind of thing. Brighton's a wonderful part of the world, isn't it? I'm led to believe on the coast, stuff like that. All of these will be factored into, his decision, and I don't think it doesn't really matter where he goes, does it? You just would love him to stay, and like you, Joe, you just hope that he maybe sees the challenge of playing 8, possibly 10 games in the Champions League is something that he wants, because West Ham, Chelsea, Brighton, Atalanta, Southampton, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, if they're here today, and then he has a stormer in the Champions League, which he probably will, they'll be here tomorrow, won't they? Or the calibre of a club might increase. Might be those top 4 that you're talking about, a Liverpool, somebody like that, whatever. But listen, I don't think anybody would grudge Matt O'Reilly a move. Celtic want the going rate for him. You look at Gallagher leaving Chelsea for 40 million. It's not without the realms of possibility for Celtic to get between 30 and 35 million, is it, for Matt O'Reilly? The manager spoke about that the other day. You pay for the player, not the league, type thing. So I think it's time that Matt O'Reilly is, as a player, is commensurate with lots of players that will move this summer in the English Premier League, if not better. But they'll move for vastly greater sums, won't they? But they won't be getting half the player in Matt O'Reilly. But I think Celtic supporters are there's an ominous feeling about it, isn't there? You're just pleading for him to stay and help us get to where we want to go in the Champions League. But if he goes, and it doesn't matter what club he goes to, he'll go with every Celtic supporter's blessing. As you say, Joe, if you do the webcam on him and just study him and watch him, on and off the ball, doesn't really matter. He's still influenced in a football match. He's got a brilliant way of doing it, a very subtle way of doing that.
Yeah, because I was watching him at the weekend. In fact, it was the highlights I think I was watching earlier today, and he has a big part in certainly the first 2 goals. He's the one that wins the ball back for the first goal in the box, which is something you don't necessarily talk about as much. But I was just looking at him thinking, like, you've actually turned into a hell of a player here. Like, the difference between the guy we've got right now to the guy that we signed, and he wasn't bad when he signed him, we were all very hyped, but he was an MK Dons player when we signed him, and he's turned into like a hell of a player who could grace any level, really. And I just praying we get to see another season of him. If he does move on, a big point I would make is I hope the club go big on a replacement. We have to spend money on a replacement. We need to kind of build on this and that whole model of player trading. You need to be looking at 7, 8, 9 millions of that O'Reilly money going on a replacement.
It also tells you what Rodgers has worked, the magic that Rodgers has worked with him. First thing Rodgers said when he came in, a player of that ability needs to produce more goals and assists. 19 goals, 18 assists, turning them into the complete player. And O'Reilly being savvy enough and, just taking everything on board, realised these numbers weren't great. And all of a sudden, during pre-season, scoring goals at will and quality goals, like passing the ball into the net, stuff like that. So he's clearly realised I can learn under this manager. And you say, Joe, that's what Rodgers will be saying to him. Stay and play these 8 games, and you're only going in one direction. But sometimes players feel that they have to jump aboard that train when it comes along, and Matt O'Reilly might feel that the train's pulling into the station,
Yeah, it's such a weird time to be a Celtic fan because I'm so excited for the season, but also you're pessimistic to all this or not all of this transfer stuff, but none of this transfer stuff's going on, and equally we've got this big thing about Matt O'Reilly potentially leaving or staying. How Joe, how are you feeling like generally about things. Can you sum up how you feel about Celtic all in right now?
I think like you carry on the goodwill from, or the good feelings from pre-season, and everybody says it. They're right about it being only pre-season, but the football was brilliant. The football was really good. Like we said before here, like pre-season sometimes go through the motions, and it was entertaining. It was an enjoyable stretch of pre-season, the most enjoyable in recent memory at the very least. To then carry that forward into the game on Sunday. Kilmarnock possibly suffering from European hangover. I know it was 25 degrees or whatever in Bruges 3 days before on the Thursday, but nevertheless, like Celtic put on a show. It was a flag day in every stretch of the occasion. Then without being too negative about it, you look at the stellar performances from Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate, two players that, Matt O'Reilly more so, but two players that are potentially among the players that could go in the next 3 weeks. And it's the flip side of me saying, there's 3 weeks to go. When you think about it, players leaving, that's not very long at all, and not very long to be replacing them. So cautiously optimistic, not in the sense of I doubt Celtic's ability, but yeah, if the key players go, it becomes frantic at the end, doesn't it? It becomes frantic at the end of this window. When the window shuts on the 30th on the Friday.
30th it shuts, Joe, yeah.
Yeah, we play Rangers on the Sunday, and then the Champions League first games are the 12th or the 17th or thereabouts.
I think the draw is the 29th. I think the draw is the day before the window shuts, so that's going to be a hell of a few days.
Yeah, you've got that, and then you've only got a fortnight before the actual games kick off in earnest. So, yeah, without stating the obvious, the next 6 weeks or so at Celtic are going to be massive. So a question of how am I feeling about things, maybe it's better asking in 6 weeks' time and see what state we're in then. But yeah, excited, but there are caveats, I suppose, is the way of summing it up.
Yeah, I think that sums up how I feel. Maestro pointing out Matt O'Reilly was a second pick when we signed him. It's funny the way things work out. Dan bringing up Liam Scales. Tony, is he someone who's also benefiting from Brendan Rodgers' coaching? Because Liam Scales was really good at the weekend. I think we all feel we need another centre back, but he's going to have a part to play.
Credit where it's due. Liam Scales was excellent on Sunday. He scored a wonderful header, and I saw a stat that he made more passes than the Kilmarnock team put together. Is that right? The whole game. I think he made 198 passes and Kilmarnock made 186 passes. I'm sure that's right. Not the figures, but the actual statement that I've made there. So, but I think that was the figures. So yeah, he has become a kind of, I wouldn't say a whipping boy is too strong a phrase, but I think everybody realises that, and I'll use this in the correct sense this time, that we do need an upgrade in Liam Scales. But everybody says that he still has a part to play as a squad player and coming in and doing what the likes of Tony Ralston did the other day, coming on and scoring and playing really well. And you saw the manager embrace Tony Ralston and give him a big hug as if, brilliant, Tony. You're always ready when and you answer the call whenever when I say that to you. So I think people are like that with Liam Scales, but he can only play in the games that he's picked for in the opposition that's in front of him, and he showed up really well on Sunday, although there were a couple of times where I thought Kyle Vassell maybe bullied him because he went from standing beside Cameron Carter-Vickers to Scales, get a wee bit more joy out of Scales. And that's your observation. Call it criticism, call it what you like, but when the opposition's ramped up, i.e. in the Champions League, you just feel that Liam Scales would get a torrid time against a real centre forward of repute for a team of repute. And that's why you want an upgrade. You do want a left-sided centre-back. I think he's adequate enough to cope domestically with the challenges. But I just don't think Scales can be relied upon at the top level in Europe and the Champions League. And I think that's what Celtic supporters feel deep down. That's their gut feeling, isn't it? They would prefer somebody else in there alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, someone Cameron Carter-Vickers' ilk and mould. But if you're talking about a performance on Sunday, Scales wasn't far off the two guys that Joe mentioned there. I would say four guys actually. I would include Kyogo in that too. That they were my four picks. Matt O'Reilly, Hatate, Kyogo, and Liam Scales. So, but I mean, it's been a good start, but I just feel that there's still to me, watching him up against Vassell at times, I still think there's frailty and vulnerability there.
Just on the Champions League, Joe, I heard you on Friday chatting to the manager, and I think it was your question about goals for the Champions League, and I thought it was quite interesting that he openly a number of times said, I want to make the knockout rounds of the competition. So I mean that's the goal that Brendan Rodgers has, and I was kind of looking into it, and I think 8 points from 8 games is probably enough. So I thought it was interesting that Rodgers, he and this might sound an obvious thing to say, but he knew all about the format, which I feel like some managers might have gone, I have no idea what's going on. In fact, Kasper Schmeichel literally said that, didn't he? But Brendan Rodgers was well aware of what was going on.
Yeah, it was a really good response, wasn't it? I thought, because it was interesting when the manager came, when Brendan Rodgers came back to Celtic, and he said, see you in May, and then he also said about inroads in Europe, paraphrasing him however he phrased it, but he wanted to see progression in Europe. And it's always kind of, puzzled isn't the right word, but I've always, that saying that publicly, you come in as a Celtic manager and you've got automatic qualification to the Champions League. We always want to perform or hold our own, but he mentioned about progress, and I thought, what does progress actually look like? Is it just that we get the odd shock result? And to be honest, the way that it's been in the Champions League in the last stretch, I think a lot of Celtic fans would still take that, but is it tangible progression? And he spoke for a good minute or two on that alone, talking about progression, and then speaking about getting the quality of player in to do that. And then when he was speaking to the BBC or whoever it was post-match on Sunday, he was very clear that there's no coded messages in these press conferences when he's talking about bringing quality players in. Anyone in the board or anyone that needs to hear it, he said it to, away from the cameras, which I thought was interesting as well. But he's a very charismatic man when you're in the room with him, as we all know. So he says these things and you feel very confident about it, or very positive about it. Obviously, the proof is in the pudding. We need to see how it goes when we're actually drawn in this new format, to see how we fare against some of these bigger teams. But the confidence is there on Brendan Rodgers' side, and I thought it was. I thought he gave a very thoughtful response to it. And I was, you come away from it feeling quite excited about it. I'm interested to see how Celtic fare generally with the new format, like how it will. It feels like a more. I mean, obviously there's an extra couple of games, but because we're going into January as well, I wonder if the game plan changes behind the scenes. Like if it's more of a, like he said before about using the squad more this season, seeing more of Tony Ralston, seeing more of some of the kind of more peripheral players. But yeah, it's all shaping up well. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the new format shakes out, and it's great to see the manager so confident at this point.
Can't wait for the Champions League. I think it's going to take a bit of getting used to not being in a group. It's going to feel a bit strange, I guess. But I mean, you look at last season, and I've said a million times, I don't think we're a million miles away. We get 4 points last year. Should have had more than that, I think, from certainly from our home games. With a bit more quality, a couple of extra games against pot 4 teams, you hope. Certainly the target should be that kind of 8 points that I think would be good enough to get us a top 24 spot. But the manager knows what he wants, and that's where he's probably feels that he wants to make an impact at the second time at the club, Tony, because he's done everything domestically.
Yeah, that's where his ambition lies. It's just now down to ambition, not just for the manager, but those above him. He wants to take Celtic to the next phase, that next level, that fabled next level that managers and players talk about. But I mean, Brendan Rodgers is telling everybody that this is where I want, this is where I see Celtic. I see they're a big name traditionally and historically in Europe, but haven't been for the last while. In fact, some of their performances in Europe have been lamentable. So let's no kid ourselves with that. And I think it hurts him as well as a Celtic supporter to see the club failing at that level and failing they have. So I think he wants to be the manager to, address that, readdress that. And I think that, as I've said before, and I've said it constantly since the new Champions League format was around, I just think you need a recalibration and a reset, and program your mindset to say, this is a new competition. We want Celtic to do well in it. The Champions League, we've had our successes, but more often than not we've had were failures. But this is a new type of competition, so approach it with a new mindset and make that the competition that you kind of restore your glory and your prestige and your honour at that level. I'd love to think that, and I think that's the way the manager's thinking. And I think he's got a group of players there playing a system of football which he thinks can succeed in Europe. Tried it against Chelsea and Manchester City in pre-season. It worked okay. Everybody said it's just pre-season. Then tried it at home against a team who sit in, and then realised, right, I think we all realised, well, this can work. So all you need now is to transition that to playing against top teams in European football. And it doesn't matter what any of them say. That's your benchmark. That's where you are measured. That's your level, in terms of success. Domestic success follows if you're in that competition and you're competing and you're winning. They go hand in hand. And I think the Celtic supporters just crave a run in Europe, and some real tangible success. Success being to qualify for the next phase, the knockout phase. Take that 8 games and make it 10, and take your chance. And I think that you're too scared to get excited, but you're kind of looking and thinking, with a extra bit of quality that the manager wants added to what you have, in the hope that you keep what you have, then you could maybe make some inroads in that, because you weren't a million miles away from winning against Atletico Madrid and Lazio. And on small margins, things can turn. And I think the manager can see that too, long-termism for the team and the way they play.
It's all about those small margins at that level, and that's why you bring in the extra quality. But certainly based off the 3 home games last year, I'm looking forward to it, with the caveat that I want players in to help us as well. I'm not sure I'd fancy with the current kind of defence, but it can be improved on. But it's exciting times, guys, and we've got plenty more to chat about. And obviously we can get into the Hibs chat probably from tomorrow onwards, because it's a big game that. I know they're second bottom and struggling a bit, and I personally think it's a managerial appointment, David Gray, that's not going to end well for them, but it's always a tough game, as we know, especially when Brendan Rodgers is managing us at Easter Road, so we can chat about that tomorrow. Thanks everyone for giving your thoughts. Good. How can anyone be looking forward to the Champions League? Come on, Hamish. Come on, Monty. I'm buzzing for us to sign some players and just to see the change in Monty, because he's here every day and we love him, but he's not a fan of the board. I can't wait for us to sign some big players and see the change in Monty. Maybe we'll track that over the course of the season, guys. Anyway, we're going to head off, everyone, and return this time tomorrow to do it